to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Dr. Nelli Gluzman speaking on Achieve Peak Health for Your Family with Dr. Mom's Immunity Protocol. After working with the sickest children in the hospitals in New York City, Dr. Gluzman found herself driven by the need from parents to help identify the root cause of their child's illness instead of relying on the typical Band-Aid solutions. She utilizes an integrative, functional, and holistic approach to medicine in her practice. This approach is one that focuses on the root cause of chronic illness of children, allowing for the complete reversal of symptoms and the elimination of long-term conditions. Her passion for this work came from her desire to help each child find relief from their illness, allowing them to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. It is the decade of this work that has finally earned her the title Dr. Mom. Today, she specializes in the atopic triad of eczema, allergies, and asthma, and has continually been a featured speaker and writer on this topic, plus more. Her love for this work is what drives her to give back to her community and pay the wellness forward. Dr. Mom has been featured with BuzzFeed Today, Pace University, and so much more. Enjoy the episode. Hello, Dr. Gluzman. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on today.
Oh, I am so excited to be on today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. So we were just speaking briefly before the recording started about how you've been a fan of Well-Adjusted Mama for years now, which I'm like so honored that you've been following me through this journey. It's been going on for since 2014 now.
Yeah, so right, exactly. When my daughter was 2.5, that's when I started listening, and I never knew you were local to me. So we're actually neighbors. So I feel extra excited. We might have even passed each other in the street. I'm a huge fan of this of your work and this podcast and the community you're building and the interviews you've held. They're just always so inspiring and so transformative. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun because, like you said, you've been listening. I learn something from every single guest I bring on. You know, the guests are just an expert in their topic, and it's fun for me because I get such a wealth of information that I can then apply in practice here in Hoboken. And you're based in Manhattan, so we're like right across the river, and as well as moms, right? So I know you mentioned your mom, and you've created your own private practice now. Blossom Pediatrics. So let's talk a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you're doing.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you. So I am a conventional pediatrician, meaning I went to regular medical school. I did a residency in pediatrics, and I worked in a hospital setting treating sickest kids, unfortunately. And I was really good at making sure that when they need to be hospitalized, they're able to get better and go home well. When my daughter was about 3 years old, I started to notice that she was sick all the time. I mean, not just like regular preschool, school sick, just entering kind of the environment, but every little virus would turn into a really serious bacterial infection. And she was having rashes and wheezing and trouble breathing. And even as a well-trained pediatrician, I had no idea how to even begin to make sure that this doesn't keep happening over and over again. I was really scared and frustrated. I felt guilty. I think, like a lot of parents, didn't even know where to turn. And how could I, even as a well-trained pediatrician whose job is to get really sick kids healthy, and I've been doing that well, it's been working, I had no idea how to prevent that from happening again and how to really restore her health. And so through our own journey, I had to find a way to get her better. And I realized that conventional medicine is just half the story. And the other half of the story is making sure that our kids don't have constant chronic illnesses. And so I learned functional medicine, integrative medicine. I spent a lot of time developing my own practice, mind body practice, and learning botanicals and herbs and many different kinds of modalities, a lot of traditional medicine, a lot of time in the kitchen. I had no idea really, and to heal my own daughter. And I did, and I'm just so relieved, and she's feeling great, and I'm feeling great. And so I had to bring this to a lot of parents because I noticed that there is a really big problem with more and more kids getting a lot of chronic illnesses that were not really a problem even a few years ago. So I opened a practice in New York City called Blossom Pediatrics, and on a more national level, I teach the same protocol to anyone that would like to learn it. A really comprehensive way to do this healing, mostly based on immune health, which is extra relevant now to a national audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fascinating. And your story is not unique. I've met so many practitioners who really crafted their found their passion and their gifts to serve like humanity, which is what I'm hearing from you, because of their own personal experience, whether it's their own health or especially when it's their child's health. And as parents, and especially as moms, we'll do anything to help heal our children, right? So this is a kind of a common theme, and I think it's weird. It's almost like your daughter's chronic health was such a blessing, right? Because it directed you into a path that you're now able to help and serve so many more families.
Yes, and I mean, as a parent, I really understand what a lot of parents are going through right now, emotionally, and what the kids are going through right now too, when they're having these chronic illnesses. So, um, unfortunately, a lot of these journeys are kind of like a hero's journey, and sometimes our kids get dragged into these journeys. But I hope that mo- as many people that go through this kind of process come out the other end stronger, healthier, happier, and thriving.
Yes, I think that is definitely possible. And I appreciate how this is like even really becomes a family's journey, right? So even though they might have one child who's the canary in the coal mine and who is the most symptomatic and having the most difficulties, the reality is there's an opportunity for the whole family to improve their overall health, wellness, vitality, and connect deeper as a family unit through that journey.
And I actually found it to be, I mean, the protocol that I bring my families through and these kids through are protocols that are safe for children. So that's the difference between pediatrics and adult medicine. You have to be extra gentle when you're making choices for children. A lot of amazing modalities that are available for adults in the world of functional medicine. All these amazing supplements and herbs and modalities. They're not always safe or tested for children. So everything that we do for kids definitely works for adults because we have to be extra cautious with kids and they metabolize things differently, they respond differently. We have to be extra holistic and extra careful. And so I found that a lot of times as an adult, even myself, seeing my own functional medicine practitioner, it was really hard for me to make the changes for myself. But when it came to making changes for my daughter, of course, as a parent, I would do anything. And so it's been a year since I brought a lot of my patients through this immune healing protocol. And so I would say most of the time, the whole family integrated into these changes. I never presented it this way, but everyone kind of signed up for doing it too. And so I feel like the whole family definitely benefits from something like this.
I completely agree, and that's what's so cool too about my practice as a family wellness practitioner is that I do see the whole family in my office, where mom, dad, baby, and toddler are all coming in and all receiving chiropractic care together as a family unit. Our Saturday mornings are rocking and rolling with families, and it's really beautiful to see a family come in and every member of that family is receiving the care they need, and they're all walking out feeling better physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually
And I
because
could
of that.
also, yeah, and I could also imagine how useful it is for the children that you see to learn about self-care as a family. Right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
your whole
So
family do it
much
together,
family.
supporting each other. That's amazing.
It's amazing. And, as parents, we know that we're constantly modeling for our children, right? Everything we think, say, and do is just being absorbed by our children, whether we want it to be or not. So you're right. Mommy is coming and getting care, but guess what? Daddy's getting care too, because daddy's self-care is important. And then their own self-care is important. And um, it does make self-care a priority. And I think the other thing that I find is when people are physically feeling better, their nervous system's optimized, they're sleeping and eliminating better and breathing better, thinking better, clearer. What we'll see is they make different choices even with their diet, right? So kids are going to be like, oh, maybe I don't really want to eat those sugary foods. Like there's like an awareness, like let's eat different, let's move different, let's think different, and really be conscious about these decisions that we make on an ongoing basis at home, because that will directly impact how they feel. And as children, especially, they're going to get a deeper connection with their body when they're receiving chiropractic care. So that's also, I find, extremely cool. And it creates these lifetime lifestyles, right, that stay with these children for the rest of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Only recently, conventional medical communities started to focus on how mindset affects immunity. And I mean, we know that affect and emotions are such essential parts of the interaction with our environment as any organism. So there's just so much clinical and experimental evidence now that shows that emotional and immunological systems mirror each other in a very dynamic and symbiotic way. So when you're focusing on healing the body physically, like what you're doing with chiropractic care for the whole family, the immune system actually benefits. And I love seeing how conventional medicine is starting to look at the mind-body connection as a serious way to boost the immune system.
It is a serious way, and it's about damn time they've caught up with that, because it's something that holistic practitioners have known for years. And I know, like today's episode, we wanted to really focus on how a family can achieve peak health by boosting their immune system. So, if you want to walk us through that, like what you're recommending in your practice.
Yeah, I think this is the time. So we're recording in September, and we're about to go into what we consider in medicine cold season. So as someone working in a hospital setting, not only do I want to make sure that I don't get very sick from exposures that are going to 100% be out there, just like any cold season, when the weather changes and it gets a little bit cooler where I am, um, different different kinds of colds, viruses, bacteria come to life. And so the whole point of boosting the immune system is, of course, to feel amazing, but also to make sure now more than ever that we're able to fight off everything that comes our way without having any severe illness. And as things open back up and kids go back to school, and my child goes back to school, and a lot of your children go back to schools and back to regular programming more and more, we want to make sure that we can make the changes now and that will really empower and supercharge the immune systems. So yeah, so these are I spent months researching the newest evidence-based medicine. Always want to make sure that the decisions we're making for children's health and adults as well is evidence-based. And that means that you're looking at double-blind, placebo-controlled, high-quality studies to actually back the ingredients and back the choices you're making as a practitioner. And so like with COVID, we didn't know a lot a few months ago. We have so much more information now, and the information is always changing. So this is the newest information that's available right now, based on the evidence that we have, and it might change in a few months, and we will know more in a few months. Yeah. Um, so this is for now, and this is the best we've got. And all these solutions that I present, they also have to support the body's natural healing process. They should not be causing any harm, which means that they're free of chemicals and preservatives. And I try to pick solutions always that are very mindful of the environment, from farmer to soil to transportation to supporting local agriculture. So, and the big difference between choices that we make in conventional medicine, or otherwise sometimes known as Western medicine, and more like of a holistic approach, is that these solutions are not just covering symptoms like band-aids, but they actually treat and address the root cause of the problem. That's the big difference between holistic and conventional medicine. So the first remedy, or rather, the first objective to get our immune systems really supercharged for the whole family is, like we said a few minutes ago, connecting the mind and the body. And actually, there's a ton of research right now that links the mind, the heart, and the body. And I love how there's so many mindfulness tools for all ages now that could powerfully and positively impact the immune system. So even, I mean, we know that yoga and meditation is important, but creative expressions like art, song, dance, journaling, visualizations, there's really no limitation of resources. So adapting a mindful moment in everyday life, even for our youngest kids, I think is a very vital tool for boosting a child's and a whole family's immune system. It's actually so easy to do now. With I'm not a huge fan of apps, but there are so many apps for kids that teach breathing. And so if you're going to put a child, any kind of media or screen in front of a kid, there's a productive way to do it, and it's with mindfulness based kind of apps that teach breathing and visualization. um, I am a big fan of an app called Insight Timer, and it's good for all ages, and it can teach you how to meditate if you're new to the meditation, and it's free, and it's just a really rich library of resources you can check out. And the next recommendation is an oldie but goodie. And I mention it because it is just has so much powerful evidence-based medicine behind it. It's boosting vitamin C levels. I'm sure you've heard of this before. So vitamin C supports the immune health, and by offering a lot of antioxidant protection, it's also really essential for collagen and connective tissues. Um, we want to eat a lot of foods that have vitamin C in them, obviously, but there are also a lot of great ways to supplement when you feel like you're about to enter kind of a cold season. So I there's a new delivery system that I'm really into because it is really easy for young kids to take, and it absorbs through the body through it's a liquid. It's called liposomal vitamin C, and it absorbs through fat into the body in a really much more effective, potent way. It doesn't have to go much through the digestive system. So vitamin C definitely is something that you should have at home, but also make sure that you're eating a lot of colorful foods to support, um, I mean, support all the vitamins and nutrients that you need. Colorful foods, having the skins on on the different fruits and vegetables helps a lot too.
And organic, of course, right? If we're eating the skins, we want to make sure it's not covered in pesticides.
Yes, let's talk about that for a minute. Organic is amazing, but also really important is making sure something is local. And I, for all of you who not sure why local, yes, there are a lot of different fruits and vegetables that are healthy for us that are coming from different parts of the world to our region. But when something needs to be imported to from a faraway place, it usually needs to be picked when it's not yet ripe. And when foods are picked when they're not ripened yet, they don't have the full potential. They haven't developed the full potential of nutrients. They really, it's a very minuscule amount of the nutrient support that a vegetable or fruit can give us when it's picked when it's not ripe. When it ripens without being on the actual bush or plant or tree or the ground, connected to the source and the earth and the sunlight, it doesn't have an ability to give us the same nutrient support. So we might be eating something that's hypothetically very healthy, but it's not really giving us any significant or powerful nutrient support. So if we're eating something, we want to make sure that we're eating to provide nutrients into our bodies as much as possible, especially for young kids. So having local is a big deal, and that also usually means seasonal. So I mean, yes, you could make kind of choices that are not always this case. I mean, it's really hard to find an avocado that's grown here, but there are so many amazing fruits and vegetables that are grown locally in farms upstate New York and in Pennsylvania, where I am, and anywhere really in the country or internationally. There are always foods that are grown seasonally, and so those kinds of foods not only support your local agriculture, but they're the healthiest. And I really love it when I go buy something, a produce that has earth on it and soil, because it means that it's not necessarily grown hydroponically, that it actually has soil on it. And I soil has more mi- beneficial microbiome support, probiotics, live probiotics, than most supplements we can get. So I love it when I can buy something that has soil in it and not completely cleaned of its soil, or never even was exposed to soil in the first place. So the third way we can support our body's ability to fight infections, whether they be bacterial or viral, or just feeling run down, is to support the body's detox process. So there are a few ways to do this. I'm really into increasing antioxidants to support detox in the body, and the best way to do this is basically juicing. Raw, fresh juicing. I'm a huge fan. There's a healthy way to do it, and there's not the healthiest way to do it. So um, everyone has different ability to juice at home, of course. One way is not really, like, if you can't do it the way that you really want to, even a small amount works. When I say juicing, I mean fresh. And what I usually mean is actually vegetables, because having all fruit is also a lot of sugar, and doesn't it kind of outweighs the benefit. So when I work with kids, I recommend having juice on an empty stomach that you make yourself from produce in your fridge, on an empty stomach, so everything can be absorbed properly. 20, maybe 25 minutes before eating. And if you're doing this throughout the day, about 2, maybe 2.5 hours after a meal. When it comes to kids who are not always into green juice, or many adults as well, I would say making a combination of 50% tasty and 50% less tasty is the key. So tasty meaning fruit, and less tasty is like veggies and greens and herbs even. And if the taste is really overwhelming for a young child at first, you could always mix it with water. But I actually found that after a few weeks of juicing, the whole family is just drinking green juice and loving it.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, but like once you acquire that taste, your body craves it.
Think I'm addicted to green juice right now. And so is my daughter, which is so fun to watch. She's 8, and she'll actually like ask for celery juice and put beets in it the night before. I'm like, I have achieved it. This is great. It took a while. It took a while. I mean, I can't imagine a lot of kids, even adults, liking the taste. But I think your body speaks back to you and tells you what it is that's making it feel good. And that process does take a few tries, but I think it's worth a try.
It is, and one tidbit I would add is that's why you give your kids these foods when they're infants. You know, after 6 months, once you started introducing solids, because they will acquire taste as a baby, and it stays with them into toddlerhood. So, like my son loves beets, and he will eat beets every day because he started getting beets as an infant. So bringing in these types of foods, fermented foods, once you start to introduce solids, I find is helpful for them to acquire the taste for these foods.
Absolutely, yes. Even with parents who are struggling with picky eaters, they I know this is a very touchy subject, but I would say and it's hard. It might seem like there's no end in sight. If a kid doesn't want to eat, doesn't want to eat. But usually, it does take even adults about several times of offering to really adjust the taste buds to understand what you're eating. So there's nothing wrong with a young child who completely refuses a new kind of food. So yes, I completely agree with you. Starting early is key, and most of the time, even offering something really does make a big difference. And when your kid sees the whole family eating something, eventually they will want to eat it too.
Yeah, that is the other thing is like if my son's a little hesitant of trying a new food, I will eat it in front of him, and then he's like, oh, "Okay, well, I want to try it then." And he usually wants to sit on my lap while he's doing that as well.
And I have a few tricks, like because I do this with so many young kids who have chronic illnesses, and they're not typically used to having things that, like especially cruciferous vegetables that are also really powerful for detox. Things like kale, Swiss chard, arugula, cauliflower, collard greens, broccoli. They're notoriously hated by young children. But I sometimes I sometimes recommend putting a little bit of those kinds of foods in a morning smoothie when you have like a banana in there and some fruit, because it covers up the taste, but it does help children adjust the taste buds of it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with sneaking these things into a morning smoothie as well. And even kids who are not used to drinking like green juice, I mean, that's pretty radical. A morning smoothie can go a long way. Just putting lots of different fruit. A banana is super sweet, and throw a handful of greens in there, and it's really hard to taste the greens. And then as time progresses, you could put more and more green and veggie in that smoothie.
Right, exactly. There's that balance, and berries are great too because they're low glycemic, but they offer some, a little bit of sweetness and flavor,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That always, and the color too.
and the color too. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Awesome. So, and even like when you're talking about cruciferous vegetables, things like cauliflower rice, like you can buy that even frozen. And, instead of eating actually rice or potatoes, you and your kids are eating cauliflower.
And I actually started my child's broccoli journey with making like different sauces for her. So she loved to dip, and that's how she got into broccoli. It would be like broccoli with five different dips that I'd make with her, and so that's how I convinced her to love broccoli. Eventually, kids really do eventually end up liking a lot of these things over time. But I do know that, I mean, as working with in a hospital setting, I really find that a lot of kids are so used to having just white foods that are soft. It does take time to start changing the diet around, and for kids to acclimate around like age 1 or 2. It's hard, but it's very doable.
Hmm. And I appreciate too what you're saying with kids that like refuse a food. It doesn't mean that you don't offer it to them again. And that was something that I've learned, like, okay, maybe my son will try a bite and he's like, no, I'm not into it today. He's going to try it again a week from now, like we're just going to keep presenting it and not just give up on it.
And for you parents who are still struggling and you keep offering, I've actually read a few studies that point to the magic number of offerings that will have an average child decide that they like it is 7. So if you're on, yeah, so I hope that maybe helps not to
Yeah.
feel discouraged, because 7 offerings is like 7 different meals of having something that they don't love, but is might be very good for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's really helpful to know about that because I think some people might give up after 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next recommendation that I have for really supercharging your whole family's immune system is a little bit controversial, but very powerful, and I firmly stand by it. And that is boosting vitamin D naturally through sunshine.
Oh, yes. That's
So
controversial.
it is very controversial. It is.
Okay.
It is one of the most controversial topics that I could possibly speak about, and you'll notice that a lot more, now that I brought it up to your attentions, you'll notice that there will be a lot more evidence behind why sunshine is not necessarily bad for us. Now, when I say sunshine, I mean literally exposing our skins to certain amounts and of sunlight without having specifically sunscreen on or covering your whole body. That's why it's controversial. There's no one number of minutes or hours or that I can say is beneficial for everybody. But in general, especially when it comes to kids and adults who live in like the Northeast or places where there's just not a lot of sun exposure, and now we're getting into winter and the days are shorter, we need to boost our vitamin D levels now more than ever. And I say this because there's a massive amount of data coming out right now that shows that vitamin D is one of the most important hormones in the body that protects against severity of COVID-19 infection. So the latest study that I have is that 88% of the immune system of the body is created. So the latest number I have is that about 88% of people who were admitted to the intensive care unit because of severe complications from COVID-19 were admitted with low vitamin D levels. And so having a normal vitamin D level in the body is extremely protective. It makes the difference not only for COVID-19 but for many viral and bacterial infections. That's the difference between having a small cold and having a severe illness where you need to be hospitalized.
Mm-hmm. I totally believe that. And I'm shocked that that's considered controversial about getting some skin exposure without sunscreen, because that's something that I certainly practice myself for my child and my son, and I teach in my office. Our bodies cannot make vitamin D with sun exposure when we have sunscreen on. And we also, the studies I've read, some sunscreens can actually increase our chance of skin cancer. So there's something to be said about even when you do need to apply sunscreen, which one you're using, right?
Oh yeah, yes, chemical versus physical. It's hard. But all the additives that are put on top. Yeah, I mean that's a whole different podcast, right? We could talk about chemicals in our environment, and are we really benefiting our child or ourselves if we're putting chemicals right on the skin to get absorbed into our bodies constantly every day and every time we go outside? Something to
Yeah.
consider.
So, I always just refer people to Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, for references on skincare products, including sunscreen, that are safe for themselves and their child and that aren't going to be create toxicity.
Yeah, I really trust them as well. It's the source. They basically list all the different ingredients of most commonly available products on the market, and then they give a non-biased, very objective opinion, not an opinion, scientifically backed data showing the toxicity burden on both the environment and the human and different animals. So you can make better choices. So often I have families whose kids really need to be detoxed, and I ask them to take an inventory of what they have in their household in terms of cleaning products and even skincare products, and even things like baby lotions. If their child is having chronic childhood illness issues, that's where we start. And it could get really scary to look to, and see what you have in the home and what you're putting on the environment, in our children, on our children's skin. So don't be discouraged if you start looking at the data. And I'm not even saying throw everything out that's bad for you, but you can make such empowered, powerful choices when you're armed with this knowledge of what we know scientifically about the different chemicals in our environment.
Totally. And, it does make us empowered consumers because, like once again, when it's time to refill your shampoo or your sunscreen or your lotion or whatever it is for yourself or your child, you don't have to continue to buy the same brands once you realize that they may not actually be good for you or the environment, and you can make a different, more educated choice. And we can spend our dollars in supporting the companies that are more eco-friendly for the whole system, right? The system meaning our bodies as well as the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't tend to recommend a lot of supplements, but especially because we could get so much from the ground, from the earth, that doesn't need to be processed much. But I do recommend like, if your child is scheduled to have maybe a blood test, check out the vitamin D levels next time you go, because it really needs to be boosted before the winter time. Yeah, sunshine. I mean, usually I recommend about 20 minutes a day. The best time is 10 before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m. I think is the best time, when the sun is not so strong, but still giving us the full effects of vitamin D production on our skin.
Totally. And my
Also,
son's very fair skin, so I have to, like you said, be careful. Like middle of the day, noon, if we're outside, he might need sunscreen at that point, but and a hat and what else. But this is important. I did have a question for you on vitamin D. So my practice working with functional medicine in adults, when we do blood work, I know the optimal level in the blood is like between 50 and 75. That's typically what I would be looking for. And so many people are less than 50, even though the normal range, I believe, is like over 30 or 35, something like that. What's the optimal range for a child?
I would go with 50 to 75. Is also for children. There's uh, as long as you're above 50, you're in good shape. There are ways to artificially boost vitamin D levels. You could even take someone with very low vitamin D levels and give them a bolus, meaning like a really big dose of a supplemental vitamin D. There are many different kinds in the market. I think that this is the last resort, because there's a difference between boosting vitamin D levels artificially through a supplement versus naturally. So sunshine is one way. Another way is to use cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is has the most it's made it's from cod. And so the magic there is that it also has the right amount of vitamin A in the most perfect ratio for both to get absorbed properly. When I talk about vitamin A, it's also vitamin D, it's combined with vitamin A. So it's not it's not really about getting the levels up so you could have a blood test that shows a good level, but how to do it naturally so the body could actually use it properly. The key, this is a controversial topic with sunshine, but I would say most of the studies point to adverse issues, like when it comes to skin cancer with sunshine exposure. Most of those studies are showing that it's the sun burning that's the problem. It's sunburns. So if your child or yourself is not getting sunburned, then you're in good shape. We need sunshine. We need sunshine not just for vitamin D levels, but for everything to work properly. So, I mean, this day and age, we're inside so much, and I actually have to put it in my planner to go outside, like schedule it to make sure that I have time during the day in between patients to go outside and just bask in the sun. Same for my family.
Yeah, and even like as you mentioned, fall, winter's coming up. We have shorter days, and in the Northeast, in general, less sunlight. There is a real thing called seasonal affective disorder. I certainly see that with adults, and I'm sure children can also, their moods could be impacted by having less exposure to sun, and that's where sun lamps can be really powerful.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I would turn to that before using like a vitamin D supplement that's made in a lab. Actually, the last way to really superpower our immune systems is an interesting one. It's to superpower your gut health, because 80. I mean, I'm sure you've had so many guests on this podcast talking about gut health. Everyone's talking about gut health, and for good reason.
Talking about it though, because it's really a problem from what I'm seeing. So many people have leaky gut.
Yes, yes. It is a problem, and that's the bad news. That there is a problem with gut health issues in the Western world that's causing a lot of chronic childhood illnesses that were never really there in such numbers before. That's the bad news. But the good news is that it's completely reversible. So that's the magic, that your gut can heal, that you can give it what it needs to heal, and you could restore the microbiome that supports it. 88% of our immune systems are created and matured in the gut. So in order to support our immune systems, this is foundation for our immune systems. My favorite way to support the microbiome, which are the good the bacteria, the viruses, the parasites, the yeast, all the organisms that live in our guts, and they could either hurt us or help us. The best way to make sure that we have a diverse and healthy microbiome is to eat the probiotics through live foods. And what that means is fermented foods, which is kind of a lost traditional food. Most cultures had fermented foods in throughout history in their lifestyles for a good reason, because you're actually eating the live probiotics. I always say ferment a day keeps the doctor away, and I really mean that.
True, actually.
Yeah.
And children as well.
Yes. So fermented foods are things like some you might have heard of, like sauerkraut or kimchi, or things like real yogurt or kefir. And then there's kombucha, as everyone's heard of kombucha because it's so popular right now. And then there are a lot of different kinds of ferments that are not so popular but so delicious, and kids love them. There are things like beet kvass, which is a fermented beet drink made of beets. Um, you could ferment carrots and ginger, and kids love that. You could eat them kind of as a snack. And you could always ferment regular cucumbers. You could ferment fruit as well. So when you're fermenting, you're basically bringing that. You're creating a live probiotic drink or food when you ferment. Many different ways to do this. Children love it. It costs almost nothing. And the best part is that you know that you're getting the probiotic that you need. You know that you're actually eating it and it's alive and it's going to the right place in the body. It's kind of not always the case when it comes to supplements. So if you really want to guarantee that your family is getting probiotics, eat the probiotics with fermented foods.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm a big fan of that. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but fermented foods are also an acquired taste. So I started introducing it to my son at, 6, 7 months old. And he has kombucha every morning. Like, he is obsessed with kombucha at 3 years old now. So fermented foods are like part of his lifestyle, and he doesn't like go eat when he eats these foods.
Oh yeah, yes. You know what? I think I might bring you over a SCOBY and some of the kombucha we've been brewing, because I think I found the perfect recipe for that kids love too. Maybe you could have your kid taste test it.
Yes, yes. Please bring it over. Finn and I would be happy to be your taste testers.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks. And then, we talked about specifics. So, just to recap, we talked about the different ways to superpower our immune systems this fall. So, the first thing we talked about was connecting the mind, the heart, and the immune systems. The second way to boost the immune system for our whole family is increasing vitamin C. The next is supporting detox. We talked about increasing vitamin D levels naturally, and we talked about gut health and supporting gut health. Now, these are all very specific to viruses for this coming fall, and that's specifics. But in general, it's always really important and fundamental for our immune systems to get the right amount of consistent, high quality sleep. And I'm struggling with that now personally, um, because I kind of went off my circadian rhythm, and I'm feeling it. So I'm gonna try to hold myself accountable by putting it out there that this is a struggle for a lot of families and parents, and the days are kind of long. We have a lot to do, but especially for our children, it means not just consistent timing of bedtime, like going to sleep at a certain time as much as you can every night, waking up every morning around the same time to stabilize our circadian rhythm. But even as important is high quality. And what that means right now, especially with all the screens in front of everybody, is thinking about blue light exposure and how it affects melatonin production in the brain. So
Wow. So all these kids that are doing virtual learning, can they be wearing those blue light glasses?
yes, there's a yes. I am personally, I wear glasses. My daughter wears glasses, so we had blue light blocking kind of in our lenses. So if you're getting real glasses for vision for yourself or for your child, now it's really easy to have them make a lens that blocks some or a lot of blue light.
I didn't even know that was an option. I was just at my optometrist and I only wear glasses like at bedtime. I wear contacts during the day, but I would be happy to have added that to my lens if I knew it was even an option.
Yes, it is an option, and most places do it now. Good, thank goodness, because right now we're having kids in front of screens more than ever. But if your child or yourself are not wearing glasses, that's great for you because they're kind of annoying. But but also you could actually buy glasses that block blue light, and I, I am a fan, and I found it to be very helpful for a lot of the kids that I treat. Like it's been tested and proven.
As we're talking about this, I definitely was thinking like in the evening, like why it would be important before bedtime. But really, to your point, with kids doing virtual learning at home, even like daytime hours, these glasses could be really helpful.
Yeah, and even more powerful to make sure that. So, how this works is pretty simple and kind of mind blowing, and I think everyone should know. The way that people fall asleep and stay asleep and go through the proper cycles of sleep, where they get the most restorative power and immune boosting and healing, is to have melatonin be produced in the brain, and that puts us to sleep. Melatonin is not properly produced unless you stop the blue light exposures and the all the LED lights in the homes. So if you want to have a good night's sleep, you have to turn off especially the screens about 2 hours before bed. So that's even more important than wearing glasses to block it. That's a struggle that I'm personally working on. Because I'm just so used to looking at a screen and getting work done late and trying to do it all. But it does make a big difference. And I challenge that I put a lot of kids who are having learning disabilities and difficulties in school is to kind of start with like 10 minutes before bed, just turn everything off about 10 minutes before bed, and then the next week 20 minutes, and slowly wean it down to as much as you can. So for a lot of families that could mean 2 hours before bed, turn off all the screens, and if you can, start dimming the lights as well. Melatonin is going to be produced with light exposure, and it's going to it's sorry, it's the other way around. Melatonin is going to be produced when we stop exposing our eyes to light. So I find that to be really important right now.
Right. And I think, the with the days getting shorter, that certainly helps. Like last night, my son's like, "Oh, it's dark outside," because, in the summer sometimes he's going to bed and it's still daylight outside. And of course, we have the blackout shades and everything to keep the bedroom dark. But um yeah, it is. I think the blue light glasses, I don't have those in my house, but I think that's like a top priority for me to order that for my husband, myself, and my son.
Yeah, yeah. So there you have it. Those are my top immune boosters to keep your family safe and healthy this fall and always. And remember, these remedies are totally natural. They're powerfully potent, and they may seem to some as drastically different from what you'd be expected to be prescribed in a traditional doctor's office. But my focus is on solutions that actually address the root cause of symptoms and are preventative so that if there's some kind of exposure to a cold, you have no problem getting over it really fast.
Hmm. Oh, I'm so grateful for you to take this time to come on and share these really helpful tidbits that are not overwhelming for the average family to implement. We can start implementing them immediately. Like, I'm going to buy those blue light glasses today. And, and this is something that's not just kid specific, like your point. This is something that every single member of the family can do to all stay healthy, with strong immune systems. And really understanding that exposure to viruses is not a bad thing. It's when our immune system is weak and we're unable to have a normal immune response to this exposure, right? And that's when we start to develop more severe illness and chronic illness.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. I'm completely with you on that. The goal is not to try to limit exposures, because that's impossible. There's microbes all around us, and sometimes they help us. Very often they help us, but it's so the bad ones don't take over and stop in our tracks.
Exactly. And, if families are listening and they do have, let's say, a child with chronic illness and they need specific one-on-one support, how can they work with you?
There are a few ways. If you find yourself to be in New York, my practice is called Blossom Pediatrics, and the website is blossompediatrics.com. And so this is a holistic pediatric practice, and my specialty is reversing chronic childhood illness. So a lot of kids who have asthma, eczema, and allergies are coming my way, and we work on actually reversing and not just preventing flare-ups, but literally healing, reversing permanently these chronic childhood illnesses. And I also am releasing this information in small group training. It's a 30-day program called Rescue Your Child's Health. You could find the information on my website, blossompediatrics.com. And that program is starting in mid-November. It's filling up. It's a small group. And I take you through all the steps needed to reverse these chronic illnesses, but it's not limited geographically to kids in New York. And for you listeners who would like to sign up, I'm offering a 20% discount with the code BLOSSOM, if you're interested.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And wonderful. So once again, I really enjoyed our time together, our conversation. I am going to, I can't wait to try your kombucha as well. I'm definitely going to have to make that happen.
Yes, totally.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. Take care.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dr. Mom. I mean, I'll tell you what, her and I are like kindred spirits. We're very like-minded, and we're very passionate about supporting children and the next generation with optimal health, which really requires us identifying the root cause instead of masking symptoms. So if you want to find out more about her or work with her personally one-on-one, check out her website at blossompediatrics.com. And don't forget to get 20% off the 30-day rescue program with code BLOSSOM. And don't forget to check me out on Facebook and Instagram at Brayton Birth Method. As a podcast dedicated to empowering families on making the best decision for them, I know how important it is to have choices. The Homeschool Buyers Co-op is the world's largest buyers club for homeschooling families. They have amazing free resources available on their website. And did you know it's free to join the co-op? They have the world's largest database of free homeschool curriculum, an incredibly cool free homeschool ID card generator, an amazing guide to field trips that are ideal for homeschooling families, as well as free webinars to help families that are making the transition to homeschooling. Go check out their website at homeschoolbuyerscoop.org and register for a free account with the code ADJUSTED to receive 5,000 smart points, which is equal to $5 toward anything available on the co-op.